India has deployed 10,000 additional troops along the LAC with China. These 10,000 additional soldiers will protect the Central Theatre, or the 532-kilometer-long India-China border along Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. The Central Theatre is home to some of India's and Hinduism's ancient and holiest sites. The new deployment of 10,000 troops is part of a new Indian Army Corps, taking shape with its own artillery units and air support wings, specially designed and designated to thwart any Chinese aggression along the Central Theatre, which traditionally has been the coolest zone along the frontier, with tensions often soaring along the LAC in Ladakh in the north and Arunachal Pradesh in the east. So, is there a Chinese threat to the Central Theatre, which houses some of India's holiest sites? Is India expecting another Chinese incursion along this frontier? And what are the details of Indian Army's new corps, specially designed to tame the dragon? The 10,000 additional troops have been redirected from the western border along with Pakistan. They will be integrated into the new Army Corps with headquarters based in Bareilly, Uttar Pradesh. More on this later. Last month, Indian Defence Secretary was quoted saying, "The possibility that we may face a similar situation that we faced in 2020 is keeping us active all the time," unquote. The unprecedented deployment of troops along the Central Theatre has three important takeaways. Firstly, it shows the strategic importance of this frontier, which houses not only India's holiest sites, but also the largest concentration of population along Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh. Secondly, it highlights the growing need for India's defence establishment to secure this frontier, which has largely remained on the back burner. Thirdly, it shows the confidence India has along the western frontier with Pakistan, which enabled New Delhi to redirect 10,000 troops from the west to the Central Theatre along China. Over the past few years, India has already reinforced this Central Theatre with the deployment of 1 division and 3 brigades with 3,000 troops each. India is keen to prevent a 2020-like situation when the world was distracted by the COVID pandemic, which spread from Wuhan in China. The PLA increased troop deployment along the LAC and occupied some previously neutral territory along the Ladakh frontier, including the shores of the picturesque Pangong Tso, or the Pangong Lake, which stretches from India into Tibet. Chinese aggression led to border clashes, which resulted in the deaths of 20 Indian soldiers and an unconfirmed number of Chinese troops, with China admitting to 4 deaths, while US intelligence reports suggesting 35+ PLA casualties. So what's the current situation along the LAC? Despite 21 rounds of talks along the LAC, there has been no breakthrough, as India insists the PLA must pull back and respect the pre-2020 status quo along the border, with China refusing any attempts to negotiate peace or respect previous border agreements. Indian Army is raising this new corps along the Central Theatre. It is likely to be designated the 18 Corps. Meanwhile, the Army's 14 Corps is based in Ladakh, while the 33 Corps is stationed in West Bengal to focus on the eastern frontier. So what will be the strength of the Indian Army's new corps along the Central Theatre along the China border? The new 18 Corps has been specially structured to comprise 3 divisions with 15,000 to 18,000 troops in each division. Thus, the eventual corps will have anywhere between 45,000 to 54,000 troops, along with their own artillery, engineering support, and an air wing. A corps is like a self-sustaining small army which can function independently of other corps along the designated frontier. Did you know the concept of an army corps dates back to the early 19th century? The concept of corps was the brainchild of Napoleon Bonaparte, or Napoleon I, in 1805, when he broke up his Grand Army into numerous self-sustaining corps to enable quick movement and tactical advantage, which saw French Emperor Napoleon being regarded as one of the greatest military generals in history alongside the Roman Julius Caesar. The concept of corps was quickly adopted and has been a central pillar of armed forces around the world ever since. So what are the different kinds of Army Corps? The Indian Army has 3 kinds of corps in its arsenal, which include the Strike Corps, Defence Corps, or the Pivot Corps based on specific roles. According to reports, the Mathura-based Strike 1 Corps, which was initially focused on the Western Front, has also been redirected to focus on the LAC, while the 17th Strike Corps, with its headquarters in Panagarh too, is dedicated to LAC operations. So how many corps does the Indian Army have? In total, the Indian Army has 14 operational corps with 40 or more divisions, although this number is not the latest and may have been changed since 2020 depending on operational needs. So is there a Chinese threat to India's holiest sites? Tensions between nuclear-armed neighbors India and China have never been higher. According to certain reports quoting geopolitical experts, there could be a second India-China war in the Himalayas anytime between 2025 and 2030. Long has China violated India's sovereignty with projects like the CPEC through POK, which is Indian territory under Pakistani occupation. But the 2020 Galwan Valley clashes have shown Beijing that India is now unwilling to concede any inch and is ready to face the Chinese threats head-on. China is keen to keep India's military and economic rise in check, but India too is forging new global alliances with the West and multilateral platforms like the Quad, with the common goal of countering Chinese expansionist ambitions which pose a threat to the current international order. The threat of conflict cannot be ruled out, and the Indian Army finds it prudent to reinforce all regions along the LAC to be prepared for any eventuality. In such a scenario, protecting India's iconic and historical religious sites becomes increasingly important, which are the pulse and the very heartbeat of over 1 billion Indians. Have your say. Do you believe Chinese aggression may spark a second conflict with India? Leave a comment below and remember to hit the like, subscribe and bell icon.